So as we established earlier, there's one clear way of using the guard so far: to ask, to put it forward and to beckon and attack. Another common way for us to use our guard hand in Wing Chun is to actively use it, rather than passively receive an attack where you stand there and you beckon an attack. We actually physically throw our hands forward and we strike and we search for, or seek a bridge. We seek contact. A bridge being a contact between two bodies. If I throw my hand forward and actually blocks the technique, that serves as a connection between us. It serves as a bridge. In effect, that bridge can be broken down and crossed, and I can strike and take advantage of that. The most clever thing about this is that as I throw my hand forward, he's not punching me. Why? Because what he's actually doing is protecting himself. If I throw my hand forward, effectively he's put into a position where he has to protect himself and not in a position where he's throwing a punch. So I'm effectively taking it to that person. Before I was asking, I had my hand forward, it beckoned contact, whether he touched me, one, and I moved, bang, or whether he actually punched around, boom, 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 it was actually beckoning an attack. Now we're in a situation where I'm actually taking control. I'm not allowing this person to actually touch me or move on me. I'm actually taking control by actually controlling their arms. Come forward just a little bit for me. So with my hands forward now, it can be forward, it could be back, they could be technically in any position. It's the idea we're looking at. I throw my hand forward and I can do so with a punch, with a chop, with a side punch. Whatever strike I do, I'm initiating a defense. I'm looking for a reaction. I want that person to get his hands up. As I said earlier, if he gets his hands up, he's not punching me, he's defending himself. So straight away he's gone onto the back foot, he's trying to protect himself, and in doing so, it makes it easier for me to counter and control his arms as I'm going forward. So I'm probing. Probing is another clever way of actually dealing with your partner. If you throw your hand forward, what you're actually physically doing is probing their defensive and probing their reactive ability to be able to defend themselves. The defensive being that every time I throw my hand forward, the person has to react, to block, to move, to turn, to do something. So the process of throwing my hand forward, I'm actually creating a reactive position. So if I throw my hand forward and he pushes my arm out of the way, it creates another option for me to return to the center line. So quite often if I push, because I leave my rear guard hand in a backward position, one, bang, I'm probing and finding a weakness. The weakness is there because as I punch, he pushes out. As he pushes out, it actually allows me to control the center line. So that's another reason why we keep the rear hand back, because as I throw my punch and he pushes out, I can control the center, bang, 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 and stay in, okay, for control. The clever thing about that, it doesn't always have to be that I throw my hand forward. It could simply be that I lock, I punch, he blocks, and I change, and I move in, and I control. So I can do that again. I go in one, but because the attacker reacts, I can change and find the center line. So very often, when we actually use these ideas, it's not always the case that I'll throw my hand forward, wait for a response, and counter. It may often be the case that I attack the person, they counter against me, and I take control, bang, back, to control them. So the idea is generally learning to probe, find weaknesses, and do that in a very assertive manner by what I feel and how I respond. How I respond is what I feel against my arm, the pressure, how he moves. And don't forget, most people in the street, they'll generally move in the same way. It's very unusual for someone to actually turn their arms upside down and try to punch and move like that. They'll generally either move out, or move in, they'll move one way, but they won't generally do anything that's unusual. So if I throw my arm forward, he's either going to block with this arm, or he's going to block with that arm. It's unlikely he's going to block with his foot, or his knee, or any other part of his body, but he is likely to get a hand up, and that's what we'd say in the business a given. So as I throw this hand forward, I know I've got that arm controlled, and it's likely he's going to protect himself again, as you can see that. So let me show you this again. As I throw this arm forward, I attack him, he blocks. leaves himself open, and it gives me an opportunity to probe and find those spaces. The other option is I throw this hand forward, hold on, let's do it again, I throw this hand, hold on, let's do it again, I throw this hand forward and you block with the opposite. If he blocks with the opposite, it's exactly the same response for me. I can still control and take him. Regardless of whether he blocks like this, blocks like this, blocks like this, I'm always going to have an option to return back to the centre line and keep control of his arms and break them down and keep some sort of structure going. Perhaps the best way to probe would be to initially strike. Now you can strike with your hands up or you can strike from a low hand position. Let's do hands up first. Initially, if I'm going to be inquisitive with my guard hand, I punch forward and it initiates an attack. I can counter to punch and move in quite directly to control the person. What I'm doing is I'm actually allowing myself control of the centre line when I do so. Now the idea in a practical position, in a practical application of using these ideas, is that I might have my hands down low. I'm quite a vulnerable position. To get to a protective position, I must lift my hands. In doing so, he rises to protect himself and allows me to control his arms and get back to a safe position of the centre line. So, inquisitive doesn't always have to be from a high hand where we're searching and we're moving and we're in this following position. It can often be, bang, from a position where my hands are low. I raise my hands to a point of safety, but instead of raising them to here, where I'm actually being in a negative position of raising my hand and potentially drawing an attack onto me, I'm raising my hands, okay, to make contact, and then bridge, boom, boom, and keep contact and control of him. So it functions quite well in a situation where you are fairly vulnerable, your hands are quite low. I rise my hands to make contact. As I rise my hand to make contact, I can find and be inquisitive and monitor, make contact with what and how the person moves.